Hello, my name is Eva Turner, and if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have sworn that family meant everything, blood over everything, right? That's what my mum always said, but standing there that afternoon, keys in one hand and a second-hand coffee table wobbling under my arm, while my brother Daniel laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes, that was the day I realised blood wasn't thicker than betrayal. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I'd spent my 20s working 2 jobs, saving every dollar, living so tight that I could tell you the gas prices at every station within a 5-mile radius. Meanwhile, Daniel lived like tomorrow was just a rumour. Big houses, big parties, bigger debts, but no matter what he did, he was always the shining star at family dinners. My mother, Mary, would shake her head fondly and say, "Boys will be boys," while giving me side glances that said I wasn't trying hard enough to keep up. So when I announced I was moving out of my tiny rental and into my own starter place, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. Instead, at Sunday dinner, Daniel almost choked on his beer. "You buying a place?" he hooted, slapping the table. "What is it? A shed, a trailer behind a gas station." The whole room erupted in laughter. Even my mother smiled that tired smile she reserved just for me. "Eva, honey, don't rush into things. Maybe wait until you're more stable." "Another more stable, like Daniel." I swallowed the lump in my throat, smiled politely, and said nothing. I'd learned a long time ago that arguing only made things worse. I just nodded, packed up the leftovers like a good daughter, and went home to my little 1-bedroom rental with its flickering kitchen light and the heater that rattled all night long, and I promised myself I would never let their words drown me again. The truth was, the tiny apartment Daniel laughed about wasn't just some impulse buy. It was a foreclosure, a once beautiful townhome that had gone to auction after the previous owner defaulted on a mountain of loans. I'd stumbled on it through a friend of a friend who worked at the bank. It needed work. Yuck. Sure, the carpet was torn up, and the walls smelled faintly of mildew, but it had solid bones. It also had something else opportunity. I'd closed the deal for a steal cash purchase. 2. Because I'd been saving quietly while everyone else thought I was just too cheap to enjoy life. I wasn't just buying a place to live, I was investing in my future. Brick by crumbling brick. The first day I moved in, the walls practically echoed. No furniture except a battered couch, an old mattress on the floor, and that shaky coffee table I found on clearance. But it was mine. Every squeaky floorboard, every crack in the ceiling mine, and for the first time in my life, I felt something almost like freedom. Of course, Daniel didn't see it that way. He showed up a few days later with his girlfriend Linda, both of them dressed like they were headed to some upscale brunch, not a dusty, half-renovated townhouse. Linda wrinkled her nose. "Oh, wow, cozy," she said, looking around like she was afraid to touch anything. Daniel smirked. "Told you. Little Eva playing house. Bet she's got rats in the walls." He laughed again. That same laugh I'd heard since we were kids. When I dropped my ice cream on the sidewalk. When I tripped at the school talent show. When I got passed over for the scholarship I worked so hard for. And he told everyone it was because I wasn't special enough. It was like a knife. Hearing it again. But I smiled. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Because there was something Daniel didn't know. Something that was going to wipe that smug look right off his face. And I couldn't wait to watch it happen. See, Daniel had been throwing money around for years, new cars, flashy vacations, rental properties he barely managed. Turns out, one of those properties had gone under, bad tenants, missed payments, and finally, foreclosure. And thanks to a little coincidence, or maybe karma working overtime, I had just bought it. His old house, his pride and joy, only he didn't know it yet. Not yet. But he was about to find out. And when he did, let's just say, for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who would be standing there. Small and silent, I was ready. This time, the laughter was going to be mine. It was a week before Daniel found out. I had already started tearing down the old wallpaper in the living room, replacing the broken faucet in the kitchen, and just for fun painting the walls a soft blue. It wasn't the dream home, not by a long shot, but it was mine. And in every stroke of that paintbrush, I felt something I'd never felt before, power. But then the call came. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting on the couch, sorting through some paperwork when my phone buzzed. The caller ID flashed Daniel. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from him since that day he'd made fun of me for moving into this shed. He'd been quiet after that, probably because his girlfriend Linda didn't like what he said. I wasn't sure, but I had a feeling he wasn't happy about how things were going. I answered the phone, hoping for a change of heart, or maybe a little peace between us. "Ava," Daniel said, his voice strained. "You need to come over here, now." The urgency in his voice caught me off guard. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I didn't hesitate. When I pulled up to the old house, the place I used to know so well, I could see the "Foreclosed" notice taped to the door. My stomach dropped. Inside, Daniel was pacing back and forth, running his fingers through his hair like he was going crazy. "I don't know what the hell happened," he muttered to himself. "This can't be real." "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He looked up at me, eyes wide with panic. "I just got a letter from the bank. This place, it's been taken. Everything's gone. I thought I was on top of it, but, His words trailed off. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You didn't know?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "I thought I had time," he snapped, clearly frustrated. "I had a few months left. Eva, how the hell did this happen? How could they just take it?" I wanted to say something, anything, but I stayed quiet. I didn't know how to explain it to him, especially not with the satisfaction that was bubbling up inside me. "This place," he started again, looking at the house like it was a stranger. "It was supposed to be my future. Eva, I thought I was going to turn it into something big, something better than anything you could ever understand." I didn't react right away. I let him keep talking, venting his frustration, his anger, like I wasn't there, like I wasn't the one who had seen it all before. Finally, I spoke up. "So, what are you going to do now?" Daniel looked at me, his expression hardening. "What do you mean I'm going to fix this? I'll find a way to get it back." "Good luck with that," I said, my words quieter than I expected. "You've got a lot of work ahead of you." "Daniel," he sneered, "you think you're better than me, don't you? I've worked for everything I have, and you just get by with cheap tricks." My throat tightened, but I stood my ground. "Is that what you really think, that I'm just getting by?" Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned and walked over to the window, staring out at the street. His back was stiff, and I could tell he was swallowing something, anger, regret, or maybe just the shock of losing it all. I felt a little something pity, maybe, but only a little, because the truth was, Daniel had always been like this. He never had to work for anything real. He never saw what was beneath the surface, never bothered to. He never saw what was really important. And now he was looking at the wreckage of his life, and the weight of that was on his shoulders. But I was done carrying his burdens. "I think you should know something," I said, stepping toward him, My voice was steady now, clearer. I didn't just buy any place. Daniel, I bought this place. He turned to look at me, confusion flickering across his face. What are you talking about? This house, I said, each word falling like a hammer. I bought it. It was a foreclosure. The bank auctioned it off. It took a moment for the words to sink in. His face turned pale, then red. He took a step back, like the room was closing in on him. You bought my house, his voice cracked. Your house, I repeated, the anger creeping back into my tone. It was your house. Daniel, and look where you ended up. He looked at me, truly seeing me for the first time in years. And for the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He didn't laugh. He didn't make fun of me. Why? He asked softly, his voice raw. Why didn't you tell me? Because, I said, taking a breath. You never listened. You never cared. Not when it mattered. There was a long silence between us, a silence filled with all the years of resentment, the years of my quiet anger, and his loud disregard for everything that wasn't about him. I thought you'd be happy for me, I whispered, almost to myself. Daniel didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at the floor, the weight of his failure heavy in the air, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for him, but that didn't change anything. This was my time. The silence hung in the air between Daniel and me for what felt like forever. It wasn't the kind of silence that brought comfort, like when you're sitting with a friend in the quiet of a coffee shop, sharing a moment of peace. This silence was heavy, filled with years of misunderstanding, resentment, and the kind of pain you can't just sweep away. Daniel still hadn't said anything. He just stood there, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes flicking to the floor and back up to me. And then, finally, his shoulders slumped. I don't know what to say, he muttered, his voice softer now. But there was still that edge in it, the edge of someone who wasn't ready to fully face the consequences of their actions. I crossed my arms, feeling that old anger stir again. You don't have to say anything. Daniel, you never do. You never cared enough to actually listen. Not about me, not about anything. He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a moment, I thought he might say something, fight back, deny it. But instead, he shook his head, that familiar pride in his eyes, still there. I always thought I'd be the one who made it. You know, I thought I was going to be the one who took us all out of the mess. I thought I was going to prove something. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. You never had to prove anything to anyone, Daniel, except maybe yourself. But instead of actually doing something that mattered, you played the game. You threw your money around like you could buy your way into happiness, into respect. And look at you now. His face flushed with embarrassment, but he didn't argue. Why didn't you tell me you bought it? He asked again, his voice softer, almost pleading. I shook my head. You would have laughed. You would have told me I was wasting my time, just like you always do. I didn't think you were that serious, he said, his voice barely above a whisper now. I thought you'd be, I don't know, like the rest of us, playing it safe, settling for less. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. He still saw me that way, the quiet, obedient sister, the one who didn't push, didn't challenge, the one who kept her head down and stayed out of the way. And it was crushing to hear that he still thought I was the same person. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice trembling with the weight of everything I'd been holding back. I wasn't playing it safe. I wasn't settling for less. I was just waiting for the chance to finally show everyone that I could do something for myself, something real. Daniel didn't say anything for a long time. And I could see it in his eyes, the realization that he'd always been the one in the spotlight, the one who everyone expected to do great things. But somehow, he had been blind to what I was doing all along. But I wasn't going to hold his hand through this anymore. I wasn't going to make excuses for him. Not when I had my own path to walk. I was done playing that part. I need to go. I said, my voice a little firmer than I meant it to be. I can't keep doing this. Daniel, I can't keep cleaning up your messes, just to watch you ruin everything again. He opened his mouth, like he wanted to say something, but I was already halfway to the door. I didn't turn back. That night, I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by the boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. There was something satisfying about it, the stillness of the place. The way the silence didn't feel like it was choking me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was breathing again. But it wasn't all peaceful. I couldn't stop thinking about Daniel, his face red with frustration, his pride crumbling like the walls around him. He'd always been the one with the big dreams, the one who thought he could have it all, but he never learned what it meant to work for it, to truly understand the sacrifices that came with making something of yourself. And now he had nothing. I didn't want to feel sorry for him, but deep down, there was a part of me that did. It was the part that had been conditioned to care about family first, no matter how toxic they were. But then I thought about what had happened earlier that day, the way I had finally stood up for myself, the way I had finally stopped letting him walk all over me, stopped letting him be the only one with the spotlight. I was tired of letting other people's mistakes define me. I was tired of being the good sister, the one who took the back seat because everyone else's drama was always more important. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I had started my journey to freedom, and no one could take that away from me. The next day, I sent Daniel a message. It was short, to the point. I'm sorry about what happened, but I can't keep pretending everything's okay. I need my space to build something for myself. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't even care. But when he finally answered, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't an excuse. It was just one sentence. I'm sorry, Eva. I wish I'd seen it sooner. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. The days following that message felt like I was stepping into a new life, one where I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. I threw myself into making my new place feel like home, the place I had fought so hard for, where every inch was a symbol of my independence. The scratchy old couch, I covered it with a thick throw blanket that made it look like it belonged. The peeling kitchen cabinets, I painted them a warm cream, added handles that sparkled in the light. Slowly but surely, the apartment became a reflection of who I was. Not who I had been told to be, but as much as I wanted to embrace this new beginning, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully let go of what had happened with Daniel. There was a nagging voice inside me, the old good daughter voice, that wondered if I had made the wrong choice. Maybe I was too harsh, too quick to push him away. Maybe I should have tried harder to help him fix things, to stand by him when everything was falling apart. But then I remembered how I had felt for all those years, small, invisible, like I was just the one who cleaned up after the mess. I had spent too many years putting my needs second, always choosing family, always sacrificing my own dreams to please everyone else, and now I wasn't doing that anymore. A few weeks went by, and I started to feel a change inside me. I wasn't angry anymore, not all the time, at least, but I wasn't apologizing for my choices either. I had spent so long being the one who swallowed her pride and took the emotional hits. I didn't know what it felt like to finally stand up for myself, to say, I'm here, and I matter, too. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through an old photo album my mum had given me, I found a picture of me and Daniel from when we were kids. It was at our grandmother's house, and Daniel had his arm draped over my shoulders like we were the best of friends. We looked so happy, or maybe just clueless about what was coming. I felt a pang in my chest. like I was being pulled in two directions. On one hand, I knew that the old version of our relationship, the one where I let him take the spotlight and did everything to keep him happy, was never going to work again. I had to protect myself. But on the other hand, I missed the simplicity of that time. Before everything got so complicated, I put the photo album down and sat there for a moment, my mind racing. But then, just like that, the decision was clear. I had already made the choice to live for me. That meant not just creating a new life physically, but mentally and emotionally too. I could miss what we once had, but I wasn't going to let it drag me back into the same toxic patterns. I didn't want to keep being the one who picked up the pieces after Daniel's messes. I didn't want to keep waiting around for him to realise how badly he had hurt me. The only person I could fix now was me. The phone rang. It was Daniel. I hesitated, but only for a second. This was the first time he'd reached out since that day I sent the text. "Hey, Eva," he said quietly when I picked up. There was a shift in his voice, a tiredness I hadn't heard before. "Can we talk?" I didn't know what to expect, but I agreed. I had learned a lot in the past few weeks. I'd learned how to listen without reacting, how to let my own feelings rise and fall without letting them control me. So, I sat down, taking a deep breath, and listened. Daniel was quieter than usual. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about the mess I made, and I don't know if I'm ready to fix it, but I need to tell you something." His voice faltered, but he pushed forward. "I was never really there for you. I know that. And it's not just about the house, or the money, or the mess. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I didn't really see you. I took you for granted, Eva. And I'm sorry." I let his words sink in. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I had spent so many years trying to fix him, trying to be the good daughter, the one who always forgave. But in that moment, I realised that I didn't need to rush to forgive him. His apology was his own to give, and I could take my time with it. "Thank you for saying that," I said, my voice soft but firm. "But Daniel, I can't be there to fix it for you anymore. I have to focus on me. I'm done being the one who picks up the pieces when you break everything." There was a pause on the other end. I knew it wasn't easy for him, but I also knew that it wasn't easy for me either. Letting go of the person I'd always hoped he would be was a painful process. "I understand," he finally said. I don't expect you to fix me. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I don't want to keep losing you. Eva, you're the only family I've got left who really gets me." It was the first time I'd heard him admit that, and it was hard to hear, but it was also freeing. It was a moment of clarity for me. Daniel would always be a part of my life, but he could no longer be the centre of it. I had a life to live, and that meant making tough choices. "I'm glad you see that," I said, my voice steady. "But I need you to understand something too. I'm not going back to the way things were. Not for you. Not for anyone." We talked for a little longer, but it wasn't the same. The conversation wasn't full of guilt, shame, or manipulation anymore. There was a new kind of respect, a recognition that things had changed and couldn't be undone. When we hung up, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. For the first time, I wasn't holding on to the past. I was ready to move forward. A few months passed, and the dust began to settle. My apartment wasn't finished yet, but I was getting closer to making it my own. Each day, I tackled something new, refinishing furniture, decorating the walls with prints I'd always wanted, and filling the shelves with books I'd been putting off reading for years. I was finally creating the space I'd dreamed of, and I couldn't be prouder. But it wasn't just the apartment I was building. It was my life, and for the first time, it was mine to shape, to define. No one else's expectations, no one else's manipulation, just me, living for me. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, a mug of tea in my hands, staring out at the city lights twinkling through my window. It had been a long day, and I could feel the exhaustion in my bones. But it wasn't the kind of exhaustion that leaves you feeling empty. This was the kind that comes after a day of hard work, knowing you're making progress. Even when it feels slow, the phone rang again. I didn't recognize the number. I hesitated, but something in me made me pick up. Eva, it was Daniel's voice. Tentative. It's me. I was surprised, but I didn't let it show. I'd been waiting for this moment. The moment when he would finally stop blaming the world and take responsibility for his own choices. What's up, I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I know we haven't talked much lately, but I wanted to check in, see how you're doing. There was a softness in his voice, something I hadn't heard before. I sighed, setting my tea down. I'm doing fine. Daniel, really fine. I'm happy. I've been focusing on myself, on what I need to do. He paused, like he was trying to find the right words. That's good. I'm glad to hear it. You deserve to be happy. It was strange, hearing him say that. It wasn't the apology I'd been expecting, but it was enough to show me that he was trying. And honestly, that was all I needed to hear. He wasn't asking for my forgiveness anymore. He wasn't asking me to fix his mistakes. I'm working on myself too, he added. I've been going to therapy, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I'm trying to be better. For me, for you, for everyone I've let down. It wasn't a magic fix. I wasn't going to suddenly start trusting him again, or rush to rebuild the relationship we once had. But hearing him take responsibility, even in the smallest way, gave me a sense of closure I didn't even know I needed. I'm proud of you, Daniel, I said, my voice steady but sincere. That's all I've ever wanted, for you to take responsibility, for you to stop running away from your own mess. There was a long silence after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like we were both finally on the same page. He wasn't asking me to fix him, and I wasn't waiting for him to fix me either. Maybe we can start over, Daniel said quietly, his voice almost hopeful. Not as the way we were before, but as two people who are just trying to get it right this time. I let the silence fill the space for a moment, considering what he said. What did that even mean? Could we really start over after all we'd been through? I think I'm okay with that, I said slowly, the words coming easily now. But it's going to take time, and I'm not going to keep putting myself second for anyone anymore. I've got a life to live. Daniel, a life that's all mine. I get it, he replied, his voice softer now. I really do, and I'll respect that. I just wanted you to know that, I'm here when you're ready. We ended the call not long after that. But this time, it was different. There was no bitterness in the air, no anger, just an understanding that the past was the past, and we couldn't go back and change it. We could only move forward, one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, I continued to focus on myself. I wasn't in any rush to fix everything with Daniel. I knew that if it were meant to be, it would happen in its own time. But for the first time, I was okay with that. I was okay with taking things slowly, with letting go of the expectation that everything had to be fixed right now. And most importantly, I was okay with the fact that I had built something that was entirely mine, something that no one else could take from me. No one could tell me I wasn't good enough, or that I was too quiet, too obedient, too passive. I had spent so many years being the good daughter, the one who bent over backwards to make everyone happy. But I had learned something important over these past few months. I learned how to stand up for myself. I learned how to love myself. And most of all, I learned that freedom doesn't come from running away from your problems. It comes from facing them head on, from breaking free of the patterns that have held you back, from choosing yourself. And when I thought about it, I realized that for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else's approval. I didn't need anyone else to tell me I was worthy. I had proven that to myself. Maybe that was the real victory. As for Daniel, I didn't know what the future would hold. Maybe we'd reconnect. Maybe we wouldn't, but I'd stopped waiting for him to fix me. I had already done that on my own. The sun was setting as I sat in my small living room, feeling the weight of everything I had accomplished. And in that moment, I finally felt at peace. Not because everything was perfect, far from it, but because I had finally stopped running from my own truth. I was finally free. Life is messy, full of contradictions, and full of people who will disappoint you, no matter how much you care for them. But if there's one thing I've learned from my journey, it's that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. The people you love may not always show up the way you need them to, but you have to show up for yourself first. Take the time to stand up for yourself. Even when it feels impossible, take the time to heal. Even when the wounds are fresh. And most importantly, take the time to choose yourself. Your story, your healing, is in your hands, no one else's. If you've ever felt like you've been lost in someone else's shadow, I encourage you to take that first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to decide that you're worth the journey. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's talk about how we can all heal and move forward together.